Okay, welcome everyone. It is 2:31 and the board meeting will convene. We have a quorum present. I know we have several, as we always do, guests in the audience, but I would like to introduce Jim Shalek, who is here at the meeting. Jim is a newly appointed board member, and our understanding is that next Monday the Senate will be taking up the appointments, and at that time, hopefully, will be confirmed. But welcome, Jim. Very pleased you could attend today. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Has there been any? We do
not have anyone scheduled for public comment.
Okay. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
Not that I'm aware of.
Then we'll move on to approval of the minutes. And we have the minutes from the January board meeting. Unfortunately, due to lack of quorum, for I guess the first time ever, I think, we weren't able to hold a meeting in February. But the regulation for a quorum when you are missing a board member, when you have a vacancy in a board member, is that a majority of the board needed to be present, which would be 4 out of the 6, and we only had 3 at that time due to illness. So, are there any comments, additions, questions about the minutes?
I move we accept the minutes.
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. There was a correction made to the provisional canvas minutes that was sent around.
It's on page 4, number 3. There was a typo. It had 585, which was the total number of provisional ballots, when the number should have been 530 provisional ballots. That the applicant's one was not a registered voter.
That's a question.
Yes.
How was it discovered?
The state board staff contacted me when they were reviewing the canvas minutes and asked us to correct it.
Because they had because we had given them the results otherwise, and the minutes didn't match the results we'd given them, or I mean, how did they know?
Because because the MD voters that they verified to did not match.
Did not match.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have to do anything with that change to approve?
I just need a motion to amend page 4, number 3, that the election director presented 530 provisional ballots with a recommendation to reject because staff could not confirm that the applicant was a registered voter.
I've moved.
As stated.
Amend whatever Margaret said.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. At last, we get to move to the election of a board secretary, for which we've had a vacancy due to the death of Nancy Dasick. Are there motions? David?
I'd like to move that we elect Nahid as the secretary.
I'll second that.
Okay. And are there any additional motions, nominations? Okay. Hearing none,
shall vote for Nahid.
Shall we move?
I can come back.
I made the motion, but I don't get to vote for it.
let's see, can we have a motion to close nominations?
Do you need one if there's no other nominations?
Now, let's do it. Humor me.
Okay.
Motion to close, thank you. Second. Thank you. On favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those in favor of Nahid as the secretary to the Board of Elections signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please let the record show it's unanimous.
And I voted for
Happily unanimous.
That's my first secretarial job.
Your first secretarial job, that's right. Okay. Next is the election director status report. Margaret.
Okay, at this time, all the temporaries have been placed in inactive status except for the voter registration section, which is utilizing 4 temporary staff people. The goal is to complete the list maintenance requirements required by MD voters by no later than the end of April or sooner. Meetings, staff has been attending various meetings related to the implementation of the new voting system. We'll address that a little later. Staff attended training for public demonstration of the new voting system was it March 4th? I think we got deferred. I think it was February. Anyway, we did learn how to utilize the new voting system, and my intent is to demonstrate it a little later. Additionally, the League of Women Voters held a meeting on March 11th at the Silver Spring Civic Center. The organizers of the meeting asked for a presentation regarding different ways to vote. I presented a 5-minute presentation on the different manner to vote, and Herberto presented and demonstrated the new voting system.
How many people were there?
Oh, I don't know, maybe 35.
Thank you.
All right, then, we will discuss the voting system meetings a little further in the meeting. Okay?
Okay.
The project management work group,
That'll
that's
be at the
later.
end.
Okay.
Okay.
So you want to
Budget?
go on to the budget?
Okay, the budget. The budget is fairly extensive. We did send it out in the packet. For the FY15 operating budget, Margie did send a memorandum with all but a few of the temporaries, as I mentioned, in inactive status. We will be close to our budgeted level. Overtime, we're showing a slight deficit. We did receive our credit for the mistake that was made over in the Department of General Services. And we have received invoices for the first 2 quarters of the fiscal year from the state. We will be receiving the balance of the bills towards the next quarter for the 2014 November election. Are there any questions?
There's nothing we're concerned about here. We're, on target for.
Right now, yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay.
Getting closer all the
Are
time.
we talking about 16 also? Or?
No, we are now.
Oh,
We
okay,
just
I'm
did
sorry.
the.
Okay.
This is a copy of the county executive's news release. If you look at this budget, Margie again has in your packet, has described what the impact of the FY16 county executive's recommended budget. Paraphrasing the county executive, the Montgomery County budget is kind of a stay put budget. The overall increase, if you look at his media release, is overall 1.1%. Specifically to the county Board of Elections budget, the equipment costs are right now viewed as supplemental requests during the upcoming fiscal year. Outreach at this time will be taken out of the current budget, and the stipend recommended that we ask for that at the next fiscal year. Margie did provide you a copy of the letter that Mary Ann sent to the county executive on behalf of the board, which was dated December 3rd. And as she states in her memo to the board members, that there were no additional funds for temporary employees to conduct acceptance testing or to do any of the outreach. No funds were added to the overtime line item. No funds were included to increase an election judge stipend, and no additional funds were added for the advertising outreach. My recommendation, Madam President, is that the Budget Committee should meet to decide how they wish to prepare and advise staff on what to prepare for your April 16th Government Operations Committee appearance before the County Council. And as I said, it's April 16th at 9:30 a.m.
I certainly agree. That's going to be an extremely important meeting in light of this budget, which for our purposes is very disappointing. Could you just go over some of the major things that, are obviously going to concern us? So I understand it, the equipment, they show no money for equipment because they're saying that needs to be dealt with as a supplemental. However, am I not correct that we have payments that come due
Yes,
pretty
quarterly.
early in the game for that? So it's not like we can wait down the line, and I guess we need to really get a handle on those dates as to how that's going to be paid for.
Yes, and I did reach out to our budget analyst to request further information on how that should be handled. In the packet, again, it's dated March 10th, we have been notified by the state that our expectation for the upcoming fiscal year for the new equipment and the project management personnel will be almost $2.6 million. And then last week, which I believe was also sent out in your packet, we also were notified that there will be a supplemental billing of approximately $509,000, and that will be for the thumb drives, the express pass printers, the ballots, privacy sleeves, and election management support. So that's nearly $3 million. And even if, let's say, it's a quarterly billing, that would basically wipe out our current operations budget. The first quarter, we just about have to wipe out our operations budget.
If we
paid it.
in the timely fashion.
So, like I said, I did reach out to our budget analyst, and I don't know if she's here, but we did request that she attend the meeting.
Okay. Well, we need to have these numbers buttoned down, very tight before we go before the council and make our case.
Okay.
David, if you'll wait, please.
Sure,
I have
sure,
a couple
go,
others.
yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to go through these things where I question.
No, go ahead.
Outreach really makes my heart stop. They are just leaving that at the 20,000
Yes.
that we currently have.
Yes, ma'am.
The discussion that took place where there was going to be funding through the county executive's office for some of the communication and outreach, is that not in this picture either, or do we know?
The theory, or what was suggested in those discussions, was that we would attempt to utilize the PIO office as our contractor to help us do the development, and thus reducing the initial $150,000. When we knocked it down, $60,000. So it would be $70,000 more, or a total of $90,000. And no, those funds did not make it either.
Wow. I mean, you know, that we were short-handed with outreach money to start with. We had a rather feisty hearing before the county council committee in our last session regarding outreach and how serious an issue it is with them, and you know, all of us cognizant that you can only do it with money. And on top of it all, we have all the new, you know, equipment that we've got to get out and meet with people, and you know, we wanted to do early training with groups of election judges, etc. So this is really a very serious item.
Has there ever been in the history of the world, I'm trying to come to this at a different angle, the county executive and the budget process, that the two central committee chairmen approach the get out the vote, which is good for both parties, and anyway, approach the county council on the budget thing as a united effort to put pressure. Has anybody ever thought about trying to get them? This is something that it certainly is in everybody's best interest, and if our pressure doesn't do it, maybe we need to get some outside pressure at work.
I think it's an interesting idea. I haven't heard of that. I can't recall that happening.
That's why I said the history of the world.
I've been following this stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
Me too.
And I don't recall that happening in the past.
I just can't imagine
You know.
why there would be a problem.
You're not suggesting getting money for them, I take it,
No, I'm
because money
suggesting-
we know
I'm
isn't going to be on the
suggesting them
table.
asking for money for us
Supporting.
to get out
To support us,
an
yeah.
effort to get out the vote.
We obviously can't speak for them.
No,
But,
I'm just
but-
throwing out the idea
Right.
of perhaps getting some suggestions in that direction.
Well, I think in light of these numbers, and I know this was not done, you know, as you know, hey, we're not going to give the election board anything. Move on to something else. I mean, the budget is very, very tight.
And incidentally, the
But-
League of Women Voters, I'd be interested. They could also. You do?
Yeah,
Okay.
they
In this for this,
they
talking about this
traditionally-
instance only.
They have traditionally been very supportive of any increases in our budget.
I would guess that there'd be a lot of organizations that would be very interested in our outreach leading up to the 2016 election, especially because of the new voting system, et cetera. I mean, I don't think it would be limited to the parties.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, you know, the whole concern of outreach in general, and then tied into the low voter turnout and the fact how do we get, you know, more voters out? How do we, you know, get them knowledgeable on it? Now, obviously, the Board of Elections plays a somewhat smaller role in that part of it, because our role is to make sure people know there's an election, know how to vote, where to vote, all that kind of thing, and all the new equipment and doing that. The political parties and candidates have an additional role in terms of, you know, trying to get those numbers up. But we're a big part of that, and because the parties are also involved in it, obviously I would welcome their support. Yeah.
So there is an effort in Annapolis to start a Blue Ribbon Commission to look at the low turnout of voting in the last election. And it's a joint kind of party effort from Republicans and Democrats and independents and so on to actually increase voter participation. And one of the things I think that if they come together is that they feel very strongly that outreach is a huge tool in order to achieve that.
Yeah.
But from having been at that meeting, we were at the right meeting, right? We were all at the same meeting, and I thought, you were there, right, with the council?
Yeah.
Were you not helping us on with the briefing? I didn't want to put you on the spot, but you look familiar.
I am your budget analyst at the council.
That's right. And you were there too. The big discussion discussion around that table, and even I think then we had the commission of voting come after us and testify. Was the outreach is such an essential ingredient, especially with the changes that are coming down the pike, in order to outreach to new voters, and old voters. And I think we did the math. I don't know if it was you, one of the council members, that $20,000 for the investment that we're putting in to outreach the voters. I don't know if it came to less than what, 1.5 pennies for the voters that we have. I mean, it was very, 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 very low, and it's just something that I hope you can take back. That is really just not realistic for what, we have all the good intentions, but unless we have the money in the budget, we really can't do it. We can do so much. Miracles really is not part of our mandate. So
The analyst.
This is the council analyst.
Yeah.
Soon to be the next show.
David.
I would just add to what Marianne and Gracie have already said that I do think that if we have additional outreach relating to the new voting system, that will have a positive effect on keeping lines shorter, which because there'll be less confusion about how the voting system works, and that will have a positive effect on turnout. I'm not saying that will be that's the whole ball game, obviously, because turnout is affected by a lot of things. But the one thing we don't want to have is to have reports on election day of long lines, so that people assume that that it's going to be a major problem for them to go vote. And so I think that our outreach relating to the new voting system that we've been talking about since the council meeting and before, I think is directly related to keeping the lines short and helping that turnout. I did have one other question, if you're done, about the executive's budget. I just wanted to make sure that, if I understand correctly, he has not done anything to change the budget for early voting.
No, we still have 9 early.
Mhm.
We're budgeted at 9.
Exactly.
We're still budgeted at nine early voting sites?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's
And I guess the other big one there was the stipend request that we had asked for the election judges, and there's no increase in that, correct?
Correct.
I say the other big one. There's so many of these that are big. The overtime budget.
Where's that?
What does that mean, Margaret, in terms of no funds were added to overtime, but it stays at its current level.
At its current level. Our concern with regards to overtime is with the advent of same-day voter registration, that will have a potential impact. We think, but we're not certain yet. There's also a certain level of expectation that there's additional pieces of equipment that are going to have to be prepared. But I think maybe the most there's a need for, if I were going to focus my my resources, I would say to get the temporary employees to accept the acceptance testing, as well as doing the outreach, the funds for the advertising outreach. And one way or the other, this county is going to be responsible for their 50% of the
equipment.
new equipment costs. But I concur with everyone at this table that we know from research, from hearings recently heard, that in order for this to work successfully, we need to teach people how to interact with it so that we don't have long lines, whether it's at early voting or election day.
Absolutely. We'll work on getting a time frame for the budget committee to meet prior to recognizing the holidays that come in with Easter and Passover. Yeah.
A question perhaps it doesn't have to be answered right away unless it's an obvious answer. I'm just wondering whether there's, since the last time we met, there have been certainly changes in the expected number of candidates to appear on the ballot in the primary in 2016.
One way to put it.
I'm trying to put it in as neutral a way as I can. And I'm wondering if we have any thought as to how that impacts our budget specifically. Like, is
We
there?
don't budget based on turnout.
Okay, but I guess, are there other aspects that we can expect that our workload will increase because the number of candidates that are, and the number of ballot styles, et cetera? Like I said, the number of ballot styles will be the same, but the number of candidates certainly is going to be far greater than what we might have thought 2 months ago.
I would probably say that, looking with the recent developments as reported in the news, with the retirement of the senior senator from Maryland and all the ripple effects of that, the thought that anyone had that we would have a low voter turnout has just gone away. And so in 2012, I think I forget, the turnout was 16-20%. We were able to get by with, I think, 1,900 election judges, and there's absolutely no way we're going to be looking at. I can't imagine that anyone running at the federal level isn't going to spend millions of dollars in Montgomery County specifically for U.S. Senate and at least one congressional race that already is going to be open. I would suggest that the voter turnout could be as high as it was in 2008, which was well over 50%.
The
So
other
we're gonna have
item,
to-
of course, that does usually can impact us financially tied to an election is if we have a lot of issues. And the ballot issue, ballot questions. And, traditionally, this election does have a number of them in this time period, the presidential election. Of course, that would be in the general, though, not in the primary, but
That would be unusual.
which falls in the next budget,
Yeah.
right? The budget years and our voting years are always mixed up in there. But is there anything else on the budget, Allison?
One point I would just like to make sure to put on the table from a staff perspective on this is the degree to which uncertainty is really the enemy of proper planning for us. And to the extent that funds are going to be ultimately covered in a supplemental, or we are expected to anticipate that, it makes it more challenging for us to properly plan at this point in time to make sure that we have to the extent that we're going to be hiring temporary personnel to go out and do the outreach in order to cover events that are happening early in the fiscal year, in order to enter into contracts, in order to do the work that is more expensive that we would be doing in outreach sense. Uncertainty creates some challenges for us in a window of time when we have to make decisions and move ahead with our plans.
Certainly, I think we need to take every advantage of the time period we have from now until the end of this fiscal year with outreach. And we might want to, take a look at those plans where we're going into the community. I think you've already started with some community meetings with the equipment. And I would say, let's look at the budget, let's look at those plans, and let's see what additions we might be able to get in during, April, May, and June.
Question, do you know how much we have between now and June? What's the budget left for outreach?
Oh, we spent all the outreach.
Well,
money.
yeah.
It's gone. Right.
But,
So-
you know, I mean, we're talking
I
about
would be
moving
we-
it around.
We would be happy. I mean, first of all, we don't even have all the paper for this, and we do not have a bilingual ballot, so we really can't go out yet. So we're supposed to have paper.
We better have it before we go to the committee.
This week, and we're supposed to have a bilingual ballot by the end of next week. So
By the end of next week.
yes, so they're working on it. They had you'll see, we're going to demo it. They have a very, very simple election that doesn't really engage. They call it the BMW ballot.
The BMW.
Yeah, it's a vote for your favorite car type thing.
Okay.
So,
Sounds
anyway.
really slanted to call it the BMW
Well,
ballot.
Yeah.
That's how come we
I mean,
getting
we as
changed.
election officials at least should come up with something neutral.
Well, that's what they call it.
Or dare I say, an American car?
Well,
I was just thinking of it.
Possibly the Cadillac or the.
The vendor stuff that they've been using for years.
Okay.
All right, going further,
Please do.
election.
I've lost my agenda.
Election, voter registration. First of all, the Green Party petition met all the provisions of law and continues to be a recognized political party. The staff has been focused on list maintenance, finishing up the ERIC listings that we received from the State Board of Election, processing incoming voter applications and updates to the voter file, and finishing out the NCOA. We received that listing we did an update of the national change of address, compared it to our current data, and we're working through that.
Excuse me, Margaret, how many states are on ERIC now?
9?
12?
11, I think.
Okay.
11 or 12.
It's 11.
Have you found it to be, how many?
11 plus.
Thank you. Have you found it to be worth the money that's being spent on it for the data that we're getting in?
I think, yeah, definitely, compared to what we had before, yeah, definitely worth the money.
Thank you.
It's the best way. I mean, there's just various steps that have gone through. ERIC is one step. The legislature changing the law to allow us to utilize the Social Security Administration to reach back and get old death
Do
records.
those Social Security numbers go onto the ERIC database, or do they just use Social Security as a resource?
No, this is a separate. We take the voter registration database. The state interacts and bounces the data. The latest thing that the state did was, the complaint is that there's all these individuals on the voter file that have been deceased for X amount of years. So, and there was no legal vehicle for the state board to go in and pull those names off unless we send 2 mailings and, the whole 10 yards. So what we did do, the law was changed, the state took the file, we pulled our file, we pulled 2 different files last year, sent that to the state board of individuals that have not voted in for whatever reason, and asked them to compare it to the old death records in the Social Security Administration. And then there's a process in which we follow, which involves 1 letter. Does it include 1 letter? Yeah, it does include 1 letter, so that we're finally able to release those names off of our active file.
And do you know how many have been done? Approximately?
We did a bounce of 4,000, I thought. Was it that many?
No, the first time it was 681, and then
Oh, okay.
the last time it was 407.
Okay, I'm sorry.
16 and then 400?
Yeah, 681. 600, and then the last time it was 470.
Thank you.
So there are different steps that we're doing in terms of trying to do better list maintenance.
And I had thought that when people didn't vote in 5 elections or whatever, they were automatically dropped somehow. That's what the law said, but they're not automatically done anything to.
No. There's a step-by-step process, and I'd be happy to share that with you.
Yes, thank you. Again.
All of us, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Going on, is there any other further questions with regards to voter registration?
Oh, very quickly. So I renewed my license. I went to MBA.
Oh, yes.
And it was very interesting because when you're going through all the mechanical stuff, that you want to be a donor and all that, and I said to the guy, I said, oh, by the way, I'm already a registered voter. But the question comes up: you want to register, yes or no? But there's nothing to say, I'm already registered. So I said no, but I wanted to tell the machine, but I'm already registered. Don't mess up my registration. But there's no way to do that. And it was interesting because the guy, I said to him, but I'm already registered. He said, I know, I shouldn't do that. I try to put it in that you're already registered, but it keeps popping up on the screen. And there was no way for me to check.
I mean, that's fine to,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about this in depth, aren't we, with the,
Are we?
that's on the agenda?
Are we? Oh, great.
Under old business.
Joint audit committee update?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can save your
I'll
story.
Yeah.
like Jude's
But I
story.
like it. Keep it
Yeah,
because
good point.
we're going to be doing a
forget it.
follow up there.
Yeah, we
Don't
have to
forget
follow
it.
it.
Yeah.
And old business.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Going on to the State Board of Elections, I sent to you your biennial agenda for June 10th. The meeting is mandatory for the board members, the attorney, the director.
One day.
No.
One day is
good.
mandatory, or you have to stay the 2
One day
days?
is mandatory.
Right.
And that's
There
June
is-
10th.
And that is June 10th.
Something
There is a
close.
meeting on June 11th, which is the Mayo meeting,
Right.
which will also, right now, I believe I sent the agenda. You can review
You
that.
did, yes. it's in
State
here.
Board of Elections is focused on the replacement of the voting systems. Additionally, the greatest interest of the local boards, and many of those involved, is education and monitoring the actions of the State General Assembly, especially as it relates to the primary election. I'm going to let Allison cover that under legislative report. New regulations requires the SBE, when in receipt of a notice from the jury commission that a registered voter is not a citizen, the election director shall mail a letter to the voter notifying them of their removal from the voter registry. And we also received from the state board instructions from the state board how to begin the packaging and packing of the TS units and OS units that will be removed by June 1st of this year. So that's pretty much what the state board. Allison, do you want to talk about the legislative report?
Sure. I will, before I move on to the legislative report, I'll just mention, I believe all distributed a copy of the Mayo agenda. I had indicated to the board at one point previously, I just want to update you. I have been chairing a committee that has been developing some ideas to enrich the agenda for the Maryland Association of Election Officials. And that process has moved forward. There was a list of about 14 different breakout sections that were proposed to Mayo to add on to the agenda. They unfortunately reached the point where they really needed to go ahead and get an agenda out where those options have not yet been really slotted into time slots or put forward. So we are not yet in the position that we had hoped to be in of allowing you to really make your decisions about whether you're going to attend for 1 day or 2 days based on being able to make choices about what these optional sessions are and whether you would want to stay for them or not. But that is hopefully coming. There is going to be a Mayo meeting on the 25th, I believe it is, where hopefully they will make those decisions. And hopefully soon after that, we'll be able to give you a better sense of what you would stay for if you stay for.
Looks like
So you're
Thursday
saying
would be the day.
we only have to be there Wednesday, is that correct?
But it looks from this like Thursday's the day.
No,
It doesn't have anything in it at all for Wednesday.
That's the state
That's what you're
board.
saying?
The state board
Then
develops
this-
their agenda, and it's generally somewhat late.
But the Mayo meeting on
Wednesday.
Thursday is you all, it's not us.
You are welcome
They
to
don't have
attend.
to
I
be there on
understand, but-
Thursday.
Okay.
So do we arrive on the 10th?
But Thursday.
On the
You
19th?
must, if you want, in terms of the mail,
It's not us. It's
Mar-
them.
Margie will be contacting
Okay.
you with regards to what your hotel requirements are.
Okay. I just
Okay.
want to know so I can put it in my calendar and block.
I
I already
would just-
blocked the 10th.
Okay.
We will be there
So-
Tuesday and
But-
Wednesday.
Starts
They,
at
they,
9.
2 days are paid for, correct?
2 nights.
2 nights,
Correct.
yes,
Nights
yeah.
paid for. Correct.
Okay. I already did
Wednesday is
mine, so.
mandatory, even though you don't know what's on the agenda yet. Thursday is optional. Thursday is optional, and you will soon know more about what's on.
If
the
you're going to be
agenda.
there 2 days, if Tuesday and Wednesday better than Wednesday and Thursday
Wednesday and Thursday are
are the best days
the
to be
two
there,
days. Wednesday is the day you have to be there.
I understand.
Yeah.
But Thursday looks like it's all staff.
Yes, that's
So
what I
far.
want to say.
There's designated breakouts for the boards as well, I believe, on Thursday. This is what's still being developed.
So this is not
In
the
which
final.
case, then you're really talking 3 nights.
If you stay Thursday.
Is that the case?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
If you stay for the island music, dancing, and
Well,
fun.
No,
but,
but we cannot come back.
but how
from
late, you don't, how late does the stuff go? I mean, you don't,
Right.
The actual meetings will probably be wound up by 5 o'clock.
You don't want to drive.
well, it is a 3-hour trip.
Right.
Okay,
All right,
would you look into that?
We-
Raise
well-
raise the issue that, there may have to be three nights accommodated.
And the agenda came out Friday afternoon. I basically downloaded it, sent it out. Margie knows about it, and she is, as soon as she gets back, she will set aside a block of rooms, and I will tell her that there is some interest for 3 nights, and then we can back out from there. Okay?
This is very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's good to have a start on it.
Legislatively, you all received a copy of the document that the State Board of Elections distributes. Last Monday, they distributed a 31-page chart of the status of Senate and House bills. We'll have another one this Monday, but you clearly don't have that yet. I did spend some time, there was a lot of legislative activity last week, and I spent some time over the weekend and this morning going through what advanced. And I do just want to update you on the fact that, first off, the bill to change the date of the primary election is proceeding, and the date that is currently in both the House and Senate bills is April 26th. So now it's the 4th Tuesday in April rather than the 1st Tuesday in April. That bill passed the Senate and then passed the second reading in the House. So that's the date that is currently in near final decision-making process. It's April 26th.
One assumes they're
April
taking a little
22nd for
holiday.
primary.
Huh?
April 22nd for primary.
Yeah,
Oh, not everybody.
And
has
so the early voting would begin,
April 26th,
Two
early
Thursdays-
voting
two
would
Thursdays
begin
before.
April
Allison, do we have
14th through April
I don't know
21st.
what's in the packet. not in the
It was sent
packet.
electronically?
It was
Yeah.
part of the
Oh,
advance.
this
pack?
one?
No,
No,
it's sent
you
separately.
sent it electronically.
You sent it in
We can,
What is it?
we can bridge one. That 31-page Senate and House bills report
Okay,
document.
yeah.
2016.
Yeah, that
Okay,
was-
what we're talking.
We sent you an updated one on Friday, I believe.
There will be another one.
They come every 2 weeks.
April 14 to
So,
So early voting
anyway,
would be from the
early
14th
voting
to the
begins
21st.
April 14th to the 21st. I believe Easter is, what did I tell you?
Easter is
Easter's
April
the
3rd.
Yeah.
And
No,
then-
no, no,
Sixth
sorry.
is-
No,
or-
March, no, there's no, it's March 27th.
No, Easter's April.
Look at the
Oh,
26
it's the next.
Look at 2016.
Yeah.
16.
What do you
But-
have?
But, you're right, Easter is March 27th, or
March 20th.
March 28th, is that right? I'm looking
I
for
thought it
it.
was 27th.
March 27th.
Easter is the 20, yeah, and Passover is the 23rd to the 30th. So it does-
Passover is
it-
23rd to 30th. Passover starts on the night of April 22nd.
Right.
So basically, early voting will end. Passover the beginning of Passover will be the same as the weekend before the election. So I don't know if you have election judges who are celebrating Passover, there could be a need to have alternatives for when they can get their materials and such. for some people.
Okay.
And then,
Around that.
yeah. I mean, for people who are observant, that Saturday and Sunday, they won't be working.
Right. There is also a bill, just to let you know, in the circumstances when a voter dies, in between casting their ballot and when the ballots are counted, right now, the instructions that we have are that when we learn about this, the ballot is to be rejected. There is legislation to change that.
Whoa, if they voted,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Hold
not-
on, hold on. They're
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah.
They're changing. Look at
Yeah,
it. Read
yeah.
There's
the rest of that.
legislation to change that so that you would be able
Yeah.
to count that ballot.
Right.
And that legislation too has already passed the Senate and passed second reading in the House. So
Right.
that's on its way.
what's a stupid
They're
bill?
proposing
The bill is good.
to accept
This
it.
way it is.
Yeah.
There has been a discussion that I know you all have been privy to some extent of the challenges we have with parking at early voting sites, and there was some legislation introduced to that. The legislation, there was at one point language in the bill that said that we were to magically come up with sufficient parking on site to accommodate the maximum number of voters expected to be present at the early voting center. That has been modified somewhat, so now it says to the extent it's appropriate and practicable, we are to have sufficient parking to accommodate the voters that we expect to drive to the early voting center. The bill doesn't actually give us any means to increase the amount of parking that we have available, but that bill too.
What is it?
And it
It
said
sounds to me
drive.
like it doesn't say anything. Read that again, would you please?
This bill was introduced
And what
because
does it say?
of something that happened in Harford County.
Oh.
They had inadequate parking at a early voting center, and the election director made arrangements for the local bus, public transit, to bus individuals from the parking lot to the early voting center, and someone objected to it.
Objected to the bus?
Yes. So that's how this bill got introduced.
There goes Chevy Chase Center, no parking.
There is also a bill that has passed second reading in the Senate with some amendments to accommodate voting rights for felons who have completed their term of imprisonment. At this point, those individuals also have to wait through their period of probation or parole if there is any. This legislation, Senate Bill 340, would allow those individuals to register immediately upon completing their term of incarceration.
Register and vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
As soon as they're released.
There is a bill that's gone through some amendments that we're monitoring too, which would provide for a special election to fill vacancies in the Montgomery County Board of Education. The current language in the most recent amendment to that provides for, under current circumstances, you have the normal procedure where individuals would advance in the same way that they do now. But under certain circumstances, if there was a special election by mail, this bill at present would allow for a top two runoff. And so we're monitoring that as well. That has advanced to second reading in the House. And we have a bill that is requiring the chief election official to provide an advanced determination of the sufficiency of the summary on a petition.
Allison, just a minute. The top runoff on the Board of Elections, the runoff, what does that do to us?
Education.
Do we have to hold a separate?
Board of
State-
Education.
The state would need
I
to
understand
modify
Board of
their
Education,
software.
but
The
do
state would
we
need to
have to,
modify their software to allow for that.
but the runoff is at another time, later?
Yes.
And so we would have to have all the equipment delivered again and whatever?
Yes.
Across the
It's
entire
by
county?
mail. This is if it's by mail, and it's in lieu of a primary.
By
and-
mail?
No, is it a runoff, is it a separate election, or is it you do the runoff when you cast your vote, so you put your priorities of the candidates who are running?
No,
No,
it's not ranked voting.
This is top
Okay.
two.
This is top two, and then for a
Just
special
like
election.
Louisiana.
Yeah, you wouldn't need a
So it's gonna
runoff if
cost
you
a bunch of
had
money.
ranked voting,
course.
right? Yeah.
Although
Huge amount of
some
money.
people would call that a runoff when you do it. You know?
Yeah, but
When
it's going to cost us a bunch of money.
If that
It
happens.
costs the county.
Yeah, because you have to do it to the whole county.
You have to go through the whole county and get the whole voting thing again.
Yep.
Take the machines out, take them over, have judges, the whole thing, right?
Is that for any vacancy, or is it
No, they're
only
gonna
if you
do it
hold
by
the
mail, aren't
election?
Well, she
during-
said they
in-
would
in-
do it by mail.
Consistent
gonna
with
do
the
by
election
mail?
being held.
Stop for a second. I'm hearing from the hinterlands over here.
Are
It's
we
going to be
doing
done by
By
mail.
mail?
It's only if the timing of it is such that it's a standalone special election, a standalone primary in general.
So if it's a standalone primary by itself as a special election, it would be done by mail.
That would be
That's-
at the option of the county.
That would be the option of the county. Additionally,
The county
there's some-
council?
I'm
by
still,
whoever declares
which
the election. Additionally,
House
there's
Bill
some
185.
there's some problems with the legislation that have been sent over to the Attorney General's office.
So it's going to be changed before
Basically,
we
it's,
get it.
yeah, basically. it's nothing.
Similarly, there's discussions on what the role would be of legal counsel and who's legal counsel in this bill to have our chief election official be in a position of providing an advance determination on whether the summary on a petition is acceptable or not, is sufficient. And so there's some amendments and discussions over whose lawyer effectively is consulted to make those calls. It's a 31-page list of bills that you have. Those are the only ones that have proceeded to second reading or beyond that I
Right.
wanted to make sure to draw your attention to. Obviously, there's the legislative committee of Mayo has been quite busy with a lot of different bills, so we can discuss any of them that you choose, or we can certainly do so offline and later.
No, I think that's great. Thank you for pointing out those that are most necessary. Does anybody have any other items on that? Okay. The next item on the agenda, if Margaret, is that it for your report?
Yes,
Is the board attorney's report, and Kevin's mother passed away over the weekend, and so he is not able to be here. Yeah, it's not been a good year for our board family. We also have Grace's grandmother passed away last week, and we're all very sorry about that. And
So sorry, I'm always because I'm making the funeral arrangements. It's my priest, so, but I needed to be
Is
here.
she here?
Yeah, she lived with me. Yeah, she's almost 94. Great life. Good lady.
that's wonderful to have that outlook.
where was Kevin's mother? Was she?
On the Eastern Shore, yeah, I think she might have lived in
Ocean
Ocean
City.
City, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry for that. Please send him condolences, but
At any rate, he did not have any burning issues for us, so obviously is interested in our debate, and in fact, he said if we needed to reach him by phone, he would be available during our meeting. So we'll move on to old business and the Joint Audit Committee update. And let me begin by saying thank you to, I'm sure all the board members join me in thanking Allison for such a great vehicle as the side-by-side that really points up, what we asked for and what was responded to, and the analysis that remains, or as a result. I'm sorry, I thought I sent it to you a couple of days earlier than you got it, but apparently my first email didn't go through. I don't know. So Margaret mentioned something to me, and fortunately I had copied Margaret and Allison on it, and when she said, no, I never got it, I'm like, I better check this out and resend. So I apologize that you didn't have it as soon. As you can see, there are some items that I think we're still concerned with, and Grace has even something more current in terms of having just been through the process,
Yeah, I have a lot of questions.
having gone through. So let's open it for discussion. Allison, would you like to begin with a sort of a walkthrough, but we don't need everything read. Just highlight under each area, if you would.
Do you want to talk about it when she's doing that? Or
Yes, I
right
think, and then we'll
afterwards?
take up each of those areas.
Okay, sure. And I am eager to hear when we get to that point in the agenda what the most recent experience has been in the because a lot of what the response was from the Motor Vehicle Administration was that they had made a series of programming changes effective in January. And I'm not familiar with these programming changes, and in some cases the detail isn't as much as it is in others. So, really that will resolve or answer some of the questions in terms of how much that has been done. I think what the first page basically notes is that fundamentally what you all requested was an audit. I think, as I recall from your prior discussions, there was discussion of asking for specific programming changes or specific procedure changes at the Motor Vehicle Administration, and I believe that you all had intentionally made a decision that you were hoping to have the legislative auditors do an audit in order to really uncover some of these things that you didn't necessarily have the information at your fingertips.
I made that motion, and I would like to say that none of it is, it's only pieces, this is only pieces of what I had intended.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted an actual audit of voters, and if they're, in fact, their registration was correct. Voters that had been there, say, within the last year, audit 10% of them, and I think we used some numbers, if I remember at the time, David, that that we used some numbers that we wanted, and this, none of this is that. So that's my first comment on it. I've got a number of others.
So when the Joint Audit Committee asked the Motor Vehicle Administration for a response, what they sent back, and it was a response jointly signed by the MVA and the State Board of Elections, was information on a specific set of software revisions that they have made effective this past January. And then they provided some screenshots of some additional screens, some additional text to appear on the screens and to appear on the forms. And then they responded to our discussion about the procedures for handling the paper ballots.
Right. Are we talking now about it, or did you say, Mary Ann, or you want to page
well,
by page, or how?
The rest just goes through detail.
Then this is that's just sort of the overview. So
I have
then,
a question.
on the overview?
Yes.
Okay.
Where it says on the fourth line, response from the audit committee, they're going to verify revised procedures have been implemented and voter registration inaccuracies have been corrected. What I want to know is how they're doing that. I'd like that is sort of mushy.
That
I'd
was
like
the
to know
phrasing
how
on the
they're
letter. Right.
okay.
I think that's what they're intending with as we go through. That they address specific areas.
This whole thing brought up more questions than answers. to
But
me.
I think, there are obviously answers that, we're not necessarily pleased with, and as you point out, areas where it's missing, too. Okay. So then,
So what pages 2, 3, and 4 really go through are the individual problem cases that you all had presented to the Joint Audit Committee, which, fundamentally come down to circumstances where either something was happening to an individual's voter record that they were later indicating they had not intended or requested, or simply indicating not having seen the screens, or not having been given an opportunity to attest to or to say yes or no to something. And so what each one of these problem cases goes through is how matching up what it is that the response from the Motor Vehicle Administration says to each one of those problem cases. But fundamentally, the different answers are that there are specific changes being made, so that what is supposed to happen is that the voter will be making the selection unless the customer service agent affirmatively institutes an override, which they will now have to enter in a reason code for. So what a number of the voters had described and that you all went to the Joint Audit Committee with was a situation where the customer service agent was flipping through the screens and entering something without the voter touching it. And now what is supposed to be happening effective January is that it is really not possible for the agent to just do it on behalf of the voter, that the voter is to do it unless there's a reason entered into the system why that wasn't possible. The only thing that is mentioned in the response from the Motor Vehicle Administration as a reason why that would be necessary is disability. It doesn't specify what the other reasons would be why a customer service agent would be taking over the process.
That was my
for the
question.
voter.
What kind of reasons, what do they write? Is there a place to write it down? Or is there a 1, 2, 3 and you check one? Can't write in inability, whatever. That, and how is that verified?
I would assume that there is a piece of programming where they've entered in codes and you select one, but they did not mention to us what those codes
So
were.
we could find that out.
I don't know.
As we're taking these issues that indicate that they have taken care of this and they're doing thus and such, can we interact? Grace here, who's just been through it and has seen what they're doing.
So, so it's interesting that they said that they're that the voter, or that I could like make my selection, because that did not happen with me. So
You didn't see the screen itself?
let me tell you how it went down. So I told the gentleman who was, I said, I'm a registered voter, and he said, oh yeah, okay, good. And I said, and I said, just want to make sure my registration doesn't get messed up or anything. And he said, no. And then he brought up the screen where it said, voter registration. Are you a voter? Are you a registered voter? And it had a yes column where you could click, or no. And I said to him, well, but I'm already a registered voter, so if I wanted to register, push yes, like start a new registration.
Yeah.
I said no. Or if you don't want to register, then say no. I said, well, I'm already a registered voter, so that doesn't really fit me, because I said, I just want to see my registration that you guys have to make sure. I just didn't want to mess it up. He said, oh wait, that screen should not even come up then. If you're already a registered voter, that should not come up. So he tried it again, and he pushed something, and because I wasn't doing anything, and the thing came up again. He got frustrated. He's like, oh darn, it shouldn't be there. I was
Which
like,
one did you go to? Walnut Hill?
Walnut Hill.
That's the one.
Walnut Hill.
Now, is it true that if you go there and you're already registered to vote, that it shouldn't come up at all? Because does MVA
What is
have
supposed
access to
happen?
that?
Yes, MBA does
Yeah.
have access to that, and if they are able to pull up a match with a voter record, then you are to be presented with your registration information.
And that's what I wanted.
And that's what she asked for.
And that's what I
Yes.
asked for. And he said, no, I cannot do that. And I'm like, where is it, like in the abyss? Like, where it's in there. I want to see it. He tried again, and then the same thing came up, yes or no. And I was like, just promise me you're not going to mess up but I know how to fix it, but just don't mess it up. And I was just thinking, this is not fixed. I know that we're supposed to work on it, and it's so at least at the Walnut Grove station, it's not fixed.
And that also goes to training. I wrote down all this needs great improvement. And how are these people trained? I think we need to get some information about their retraining.
He knew. Like, it wasn't like, oh yeah, just, he knew, because he tried again to get rid of it, because I think, he was trying to, but I don't know if it was the training or if the system was not working.
Yeah, it sounds like it's the system.
So
It's the
to
wrong.
me, that interaction was more like the system, because he knew, because he did it again to try to accommodate, let me try it again, and he got frustrated, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like.
Did it ever come up?
Huh?
Did it ever come up? The right
No,
screen?
he could not get it up.
Is
No.
your name listed the same way?
Oh yeah.
I mean, is it hyphenated in both places?
Yeah, it's the same.
Okay.
This was my fourth renewal.
So
with
then,
the
what
same
did you do when faced with that? Did you
I did
continue
the sign
on?
of the cross, and I said, hopefully, hopefully I'm still a Democrat by the end of the day.
And you just checked no. You didn't want to register, right?
No, I couldn't even check no. It would not let me. It would
But
not.
it let him go on to the next screen to go on to get what you
He
needed.
just skipped it. He did something, and he skipped it.
So he must have checked no or something.
He did something, but I was just like, okay. My biggest concern was my eyesight.
Yeah, but this system needs
Grace,
improvement.
when did you go to
Yeah, just
What
check
was
your
your
record.
date?
I'm a little embarrassed to say it was almost on my birthday. Waited to the last minute, March 6th.
That's okay.
And the previous screens to be an organ donor, did you touch the screen for those, or did the agent
Yes,
touch
no,
the screen?
I touched the ones
You
for
touched
the
the
yeah
screens
for the
for
for yeah, which I was expecting the same thing for the voter registration. I was expecting the same the same pattern to occur, and it didn't. But he tried. It wasn't like he just did it, but he tried again because I said hello, and he was just it's not supposed to happen like this. I said okay. So I don't know if it's training, or if it's the software is just not working, or maybe that is the particular MBA,
But so at least in theory at this point, there ought to be a log of that where the agent indicated that they took over the transaction because of an override code, which perhaps was because of your complaint that it wasn't doing it properly or whatever that was. But that ought to be a circumstance that can be tracked
And I'm
now.
still advocating for some kind of receipt or something to be printed for the person to,
Yeah, we'll get to that at the end. Yeah.
But I have some kind of receipt to, and just to say, okay, so you are registered to vote, you are a donor, just an affirmation one that I was there and that, because you leave with nothing, you renew your license and that's
Gracie,
that's
it says right here, the response from the Motor Vehicle Administration says, customer service agents will not be able to skip past this step in an in-person transaction without entering a reason for the override.
Right, so there's
And it didn't, that's exactly what you're talking about.
So he probably entered a reason.
So this is totally
Yeah, but I did not
wrong.
touch the screen. So my mom's license is coming up in 10 days, so we're going to go to Clover Road.
Oh, yeah, great to go to another one.
I just take my family all around, okay? But
Should we see if it's the same outside of Montgomery County, or if it's just us?
I'm wondering,
but it's still worrisome.
in this initial question that you're asked,
Yeah.
which is, do you want to register to vote, yes or no? There should be a yes, no, and already registered,
Exactly.
right?
Well,
I
and
mean,
that's-
doesn't that?
And I think that was one of
The
the
box
points I
that's
brought up a
currently
couple of months ago, right? That there should be already an option saying, I'm already registered,
Okay. And
But then you brought up an issue.
Yeah. If there is an
Right?
already registered choice, we still are going to want to make sure that, in fact, someone who thinks they're already registered is already registered. Because otherwise, they're going to leave thinking they're in good shape, and it may turn out that when we compare it to our records, that they're not already registered.
Madam President, in our discussions before this letter was written back in September, the position that was articulated by the State Board Representative staff person was that one of the reasons they don't ask the question, are you already registered to vote, is because of that human error. And the other piece was they say yes or no. This is their response, okay? All right, yes or no.
Remember that.
And then if you say yes, what they're trying to do is confirm that we have the most up-to-date address. That's the same issue that we have with the absentee online application. If you remember, we got complaints about it in the general election.
Yeah, I
You
do.
clicked on there, and where did it send you?
Yeah.
It sent you to voter registration. What the state board staff is saying is that because people are and they are, 10% of them are always moving around, this is their way to capture the most up-to-date
But you know what's
registration.
interesting about that response is that with the way technology is today, that if I were to say I'm already a registered voter, that my registration will not come up and say is the information is still accurate and up to date.
And in theory, that screen is, they say right here.
Well,
But that, you know what I mean? If
Yeah.
that
have
that
it- they
should
have
be
it-
the next logical.
Yeah, this screen is the
Yeah.
one that you're supposed to see.
I mean, can I see it? Because I never.
Well, and if they have an internet connection, along with her date of birth and her address, they should be able to look up whether she's registered to vote.
I'm just telling you what they told
Yeah.
me. Okay, that's what they're saying though.
Well, do we want to move toward making sure they do this. And
Oh, without a
the-
doubt. I mean, we're not going away on this issue, put it that way.
I would think it would need
Yeah.
some greater
Yeah.
explanation on the screens. Because if in fact they want you to answer yes to do you need to register to vote? If they want you to answer yes if you're already registered but you changed your address, and no if you're already registered and you don't have to change anything, I would think you'd want to have instructions that say that, because everybody who comes to that screen is trying to figure out, okay, I'm already registered, what do I do?
Or how about, do you want to check your voting status? That I would push that immediately to see if they had everything correct.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me is that we're putting a lot of this information in the hands of an agency that we may not feel could represent us well. And I worry about, we have enough problems with the MVA as it stands now, but the idea that that will be the primary way that people check on their voting registration status, or at least one of the primary ways, makes me concerned.
Except you're doing it anyway, just in another manner.
Right.
The voter, it comes up. This is just giving everybody
I mean,
the
that's
choice
the
of
trouble.
seeing it.
They're
Right.
doing it, but
Right.
not in a
Right, and once
fashion
once
that's
they're doing it, I mean, I would make sure that there'd be a lot more explanation as to what they're
But they
doing.
already took some step to, change the system. And that's
They say they did, Nahi, but they didn't. Because right here they said they'd
No,
changed
that
it.
was
No, I-
one of the problems.
I
I'm
think
just
that
talking
they-
overall.
Yeah, I think that they have,
They have
taken
to.
steps. The
Yeah, they
question is,
haven't-
how effective have their steps
Right.
been?
Yeah.
Which is why I put down the training. But
Well-
whether it's the program or the training, they
Well, I think it's some of both, and as we get further in at the end of the report, at the end of their audit, there are some items that weren't addressed at all.
I also mentioned.
Sorry, can I just, before I forget, is that screen also in Spanish? That screen that's supposed to come up?
There is supposed to be a bilingual screen.
Okay. I just was wondering how that, and I should have asked, but I was more like,
Yeah.
I need to get my license last day.
You can ask them through mine.
Yeah, but I was just wondering if they did have it in a bilingual setup. Thank you. Sorry.
I had
We'll check it
mentioned at one of our meetings before, having gone to a conference where I saw a presentation from the Free Charitable Trust on some of the work that they were doing with motor vehicle administrations nationwide. And one of the things that was highlighted in that presentation is that the phrasing that is commonly used of the "do you want to register to vote" is answered seasonally by people with a yes. That as an election is coming up, people say yes. When there's no election coming up, people say no. And that the phrasing of that contributes to the spikes that we see in, the volume right before an election, and people not updating their information mid-year as a result. So that's on their radar screen as something that they would like to address with other states as well as Maryland.
It sounds like providing the current information is an important step then, so that people know that they're already there. Because for people who don't think about elections as often as we do, it may be that in an odd numbered year they go to the Motor Vehicle Administration and they just don't care.
Or perhaps the phrasing could prompt people to give an update even if they think they are registered
Right.
but are not
Right.
appearing to be so.
Please check your information here and make sure your address is current, or something like that.
The next row in the chart mentions the problem cases we had with voters using the kiosk and the web. And what we had highlighted, and this is from my own testing with MVA personnel on the phone with me as I was doing a transaction on the website, it seemed as though if you have an interruption in your internet connection, instead of getting an error message, you just get sent out to the main screen so that you bypass the voter registration section. Or, that we weren't sure what the reason was, but I personally, there was a motor vehicle staff member on the phone with me when he was able to replicate the problem that I had. So the response saying that it wasn't possible to, wasn't easy to replicate doesn't really speak to the specific case we ran into. But apparently there was also an issue with voters being confused on when to hit next or cancel, and so they have addressed that. And then we got into the signature aspect of it. Now, if the voter is affirmatively clicking yes, then using the previously captured signature in an in-person transaction or an online transaction is consistent with the way we generally do online voter registration in the state. But I believe the concern here was that when that signature is being used, particularly when there is a situation where the voter is, it's questionable whether the voter is really taking any affirmative act here at all, that was where some of these issues were coming into play with individuals.
Does the
stating that they
voter
were-
get to see that signature? If you push yes, then do you get to see your signature? Do you know?
Did you see it?
Do you know? See what I mean? To
No,
make sure that
I
it's
didn't see
yours.
my signature. I signed for my license, but I didn't see.
Well, you weren't changing your voter
Well, you were
information.
not registering.
And that's the signature they're going to use, the signature that you signed
I'm
for the
sure.
license.
Yep.
Well, no,
Because you don't sign this.
No, it sounds like she didn't ask to change her voter information, so there would be nothing to sign.
But if you say yes to this, they use your previous signature.
That's right.
And what I'm saying
That's what
is,
they
does
have
the
done.
voter, does
Copy and
the
paste.
person that's standing there then get to see that signature? Does it come up on a screen so you make sure that it's yours?
Where am I missing this on here?
Yeah,
I
thought
can't,
that they were-
find
I
it.
thought they were changing that.
Page 3, section 2.
Oh,
Even when
there.
I signed for my license, I didn't get to see.
Didn't you
see
sign
what
in
I'm-
the little
Yeah, I did.
electronic box?
Yeah.
And you didn't see your signature?
No,
in
no,
there?
no. When you do it, but I thought what she
It
meant
didn't
was
come back
then
later.
you see it later on your form,
Oh.
or yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're still not happy. I mean, because our initial request was to have another signature. Am
That's right.
I not
That's right.
right?
Exactly.
We wanted a signature on the registration as well. Now, I think a fallback position could be that they could transpose the previous signature, but we want to see it.
Exactly.
The voter needs to see it.
Exactly.
And then check yes at that point when they've seen the signature and they agree it's theirs, you know.
And it's the full name, and if somebody has a different last name than they had before, that it's been changed. And I think there's a number of reasons that you would want to see your signature.
I think you addressed that skipping ahead to the top of page 6. That's where the item was, where there's no summary screen for you to attest that all of that is accurate.
Well, and the fact that there's no summary screen is just not acceptable. I mean, absolutely we want a summary screen.
Yeah.
Just like you do on a voting
Right.
machine, you know,
Yeah.
so that
Right.
you can then have another read through of all
There's
your
no summary
information.
screen and there's no verification for anything you have done, any transaction. So I would be satisfied with either one, you know. But at least you have something that you can confirm what you have done.
So the rows we skipped there were lack of a clear record of whether the voter made the selection or the agent did so. So now we'll see this new process of having an override code entered in that should provide a record, what that
How or
information will
when, yeah.
contain, or how or when that is shared with us.
Yeah, and maybe because you say I'm already registered, maybe they have a special code that they
Yeah.
put in, and
Well,
then
we'll be
you
able
know.
to find out. Well,
Yeah.
look yours up.
Yeah. See if there's any.
You get
Notification.
Part
You
the
like the
green part.
party.
And then we had two more.
I said green party.
We had two more. We had the particular problem case that was with the individual of a non-citizen permanent resident. who
What
was
page are you on
registered
now?
to vote.
Five.
I'm on page 5.
You're on page 5.
Yeah,
You've
that
gone
was-
over it. You're through with these others.
That was my case.
Yes, a
yeah.
lot of it is a duplication of the same type of issues, if you know what I mean.
And that to me is a very, very worrisome issue.
What I believe we were able to, so the MVA response covers really three different, it notes that the voter registration question does not appear when the voter is obtaining a non-federally compliant driver's license. And so that's a situation where the Motor Vehicle Administration knows that this is an individual who is not a citizen, but is also not a permanent resident who would be eligible to get a real ID or a federally compliant driver's license as well. So the circumstance of a non-citizen who is eligible to get the federally compliant ID, in that case, what they did is add language right at the front of the voter registration process. It was that at the very end, you did have the oath where you needed to check yes, that you were a citizen was one of the things included in the list. But at that very initial screen where you're asked if you wanted to register to vote or not, it didn't say I am a U.S. citizen and I want to register to vote. So they're adding that aspect to that earlier screen.
See, that is even confusing to me. And I'll tell you, in this specific case, and it was actually the dad of one of our judges on early voting, he had not even attempted to register to vote. It was done automatically for him, which was worrisome. But having the language before, the language really, and even if you had the language, there still could be, room for mistakes and so on. But checking the fact that you are a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, as soon as you check the box with permanent resident, it should not even allow you to go any further to register to vote at all. That should be like, an instant block. That should be it. There should be no, any more questions about voter registration. And the reason why this is so important is because this gentleman was in his process of applying for his U.S. Citizenship. And that is a federal offense. And he didn't, so you have people who are applying for the U.S. citizenship without knowing they might be committing a federal offense. And we are a community of a large immigrant population in Montgomery County. We have, a lot of biotech, technology, and so on that, they're in the process of becoming U.S. citizens. So as soon as you check, I'm a U.S. resident, that's it. There should be no more further anything else to check. Like, you should not even get any voter registration.
The screen should automatically flip
Absolutely.
to the next thing.
Right.
Yeah, and that can be done.
So I can imagine that their IT people cannot, I'm not an IT expert by no means, but that seems like a very simple thing to do.
I would like to take it one step more, because when I read this and I thought about the example you used, and also a question I got from somebody else outside, this ought to be on our paper applications too, the first question. Are you a U.S.? It's down at the bottom of, I think the application you sent me to vote, not for me to vote, but when I asked you one, that it says at the bottom, are you a U.S. citizen? It seems to me that ought to be the first question that anybody gets when they're applying to vote. It's at the top?
They're saying it's on the top.
Yeah, I thought it was at the top.
Can you
No,
go?
there's some old forms.
Could I get one, please?
There might be some old forms that,
Okay, good. I hope it is, because it ought to be the first question.
Yeah, no, I'm
That's certainly more important than where you live.
And this is what
very
they're saying
small.
is the first. Yeah.
I think
it
you
is.
need a little
You sit
magnifying
When you
glass.
sit there.
So it should be like,
Doesn't
because
say that.
truly I think there's,
Yes, to the first
Yeah,
step.
it says first
could
step.
create a lot of issues for folks who,
But what happens now if somebody checks no on that? It doesn't end the process?
I don't know.
We can double
that's-
check.
Okay.
That's the question,
that
right?
one you don't want to test
you
out.
would-
It goes back to the
What did you
question
say,
of
Mary
being
Ann?
certain
I'm
of
saying,
voter.
what happens now if somebody, checks no there, they're not a citizen, then will the screen go dark?
Isn't the question now a
The
compound
question
question?
says-
It's not just,
Fade to black.
are you a citizen, it's are you a citizen and want to register?
It says, yes, I am a U.S. citizen and want to apply to register to vote. No, I am declining to apply to register to vote at the MVA today.
That's the new language as edited.
So it's
I
still-
see.
it's
So it
still-
doesn't ask them
ask
if they're
you-
a citizen,
Right.
which
Well,
maybe
the first
Has
one, the
pluses
first
and
you
one,
don't want
yes,
to. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it goes back to the earlier question of that certainty that it is the voter themselves who is checking these boxes as opposed
Right, that's
to,
the issue.
and then even in the situation where the voter is checking the boxes, they identified some additional things they could do to help make sure that the voter knew what they were doing when they agreed to register to vote. We discussed the summary screen issue, and then the very last column is a different question, which was the concern that was raised about the sufficiency of the custody trail for hard copy voter registrations when they receive them. And effectively, the response from the Motor Vehicle Administration is that we do not track these at the individual level. We track how many we receive, and that's consistent with what other states do.
This brought up to me when I read this is, do we want to do that at all? Do we have many that drop it off at MVA And would this be something that we just don't want to offer because
Well,
there's no custody?
I talked to Margaret about this when Allison and I were working on this issue. And you might want to speak to this, Margaret, because we have locations throughout the county where people can drop registrations. It's not unique to MVA, right?
But are they all handled the same way?
Yes,
That they're
we
dropped
do
in a
have-
box and no.
Where are the other ones?
We
Libraries?
have there's libraries, recreation centers, community centers,
Citizen
U.S.
centers.
Postal Services, a Gilchrist Center,
Okay,
all the
question
MBA locations, social services, and some
Question
of
one,
this is federal
Charlie
law.
said that, so that's
Federal
all.
law. The other piece is that the MVA, if you do certain transactions online, they automatically send you
Thank you.
a voter registration form. And some people utilize that form and drop it off. For whatever reason, they choose not to go to the kiosk, they choose not to go and do face-to-face, they just
Or
drop
mail
it
it.
off. And
Well, they don't want the line, I presume, right? You'd have to wait in line for the other part of the process.
so we do receive literally thousands of them. And yes, that does occur. There are mistakes that are made by human beings in the fact that they don't file them correctly. But last year in the 2014 election, we had three. There was Miss Bagley was one of them. And then when we were looking for Miss Bagley and working with the MVA, they found two that had been misfiled, and we were able to correct that. And then there was one more, I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, but that was the person that was discussed at the county council meeting.
Was that Miss
The-
Bagley's husband?
Yes, that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause that was a big one, because that was one where he said he registered at the Motor Vehicle Administration, and they said we have no record of it.
Right.
Okay, he did an electronic one, she did the paper one.
Yeah, their records indicated that he had declined, that he had said no.
And neither one of them showed up.
Right.
Yeah, what are the odds?
Yeah.
Very slim.
They should play the lottery.
Right. I mean, very, very slim that he went to the Motor Vehicle Administration after relocating from out of state in the job that he has, where voter registration is part of his job, and for him to then come to Maryland and decline to register himself, but then claim to us that he did, I think that's a pretty slim chance.
One more question I have. So I had interaction with the clerk at MBA because over 40, you have to go with the clerk, okay? Under 40, you can use the kiosk. So I'm just,
You're talking age?
oh yeah.
You're saying that there's actually a sign that says that?
Jesus.
Yeah, yes. Oh yeah. If you're
Old
if
people.
turn right, if you
What they say, old people get in this line.
It's because of the vision, okay?
It's too bad Kevin isn't here, because he could pick up a lot of business out of it.
But yeah, no, there is because
Mr. Shallett would like the business.
it's because over 40 you have to do a mandatory. I think it's by statute. You have to do a mandatory vision screening. So you have to see. Okay, you have to see the clerk. Because I was like, I went to the kiosk, okay, and I was going through, but I was wondering how the process is at the kiosk, because you don't see, when you renew your license, what comes up on the screen, and then if you're able, I guess you have to, right? You have total control of what you touch and what you don't touch and what you register for and that. So I'm a little bit concerned with that process. So if anybody under 40 who is going to
What would happen if we went to a kiosk and started to do it? The minute our birthday comes up, they'll...
Oh, it kicks you out. Oh, it said, no, literally, it says you're too old. No, it just said, please proceed to the office to see a
Clerk or
clerk.
the police will be called. I have to go too. I'll see.
But I'm just wondering what the process is when somebody under 40 renews their license, and how
Mine is next year.
how the screen looks, so what they have to do, because It has to ask them, do you want to register to vote, yes or no?
I
have
think
the
the only
screen.
person in this room that might be able to answer that question is Lisa.
Yeah, that's right.
Or this Lisa.
Yeah, oh wait.
Lie to me.
Oh, Lisa
One under
says,
40 here.
When you're under 40 and you go to the kiosk
yes.
to renew your license, they don't pop up. It doesn't ask you, are you a registered? It just uses whatever information you already have, and it goes off that.
So it doesn't even tell you
It doesn't even ask you whether you want to vote?
about.
Seriously?
She just did hers in December. I just did mine.
Now, that's ridiculous
Well,
too.
you did that. You did it in December.
Yes, I'm a
Okay.
registered
But
voter
that's
already,
changed.
so it just used my same information.
That's
Did it
8
ask?
Oh, okay.
No, it said- it
Maybe
told you
because
were
she was
But
registered, yeah.
it doesn't tell me that I was already registered. I already know I'm a registered voter. So if you don't know, it
Right.
doesn't prompt you at the kiosk to
Right.
let you know.
Well, I guess
Did
one
you
of
go
our...
to Walnut Hill too? No, you were up in.
And I went to Gatesburg.
So, one of our questions, perhaps, aside from the amazing question of how it is that they divide people based on age, which I still
Let me tell you, I felt horrible.
I can't imagine. But anyway, certainly if they
Not getting older, you only have one other alternative, so don't worry
right,
about
no,
it.
obviously, well, it's basically, I would make a pretty good argument that being told that you have to wait in line to talk to a person at the MVA is not something that people want.
Yeah, no,
and would be a form of discrimination. But anyway,
Well, age discrimination.
my question is, I'd like to find out to make sure that however they're handling voting, they're handling it the same for people below and above age 40. Because we obviously have no distinction between anybody between 18 and 120.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
My personal suspicion here is that a part of what is going on the website and at the kiosk is interruptions in the signal. And when you have interruptions in the signal, then you don't see the voter registration screens that you're supposed to see. Because you are supposed to see them, but the reports that you don't are often enough. Then it has been explained to me by staff at the MVA that if they have an interruption in the internet connection during the course of the transaction, that you will not see the screen.
Well,
Seems
what
like there's been a lot of those.
Yeah, but what happens if they have an interruption when they're dealing with MVA information? They make you start over again? Because obviously, one would hope that the interruption is not only when you get into the voter registration portion of what you're doing.
I need to bring this to conclusion because we still have a lot of stuff to do. On this form, Denise had a suggestion. It's a state board of election form, so it needs to go to them. But I thought it made sense. The "Are you a U.S. citizen" appears under the "Are you at least 16 years old?" They ought to flip that and make it the very first question.
I think it's actually a federal question.
It's in that first. Pardon me.
It's dictated in federal law.
Federal law says that this age comes first.
The phrasing at the beginning of the voter registration form is dictated in federal law for the federal postcard application.
So all the states have that format.
The first two questions.
Okay.
Can we put it in heavier ink? Next to it's heavier
They're
ink.
both absolute disqualifiers.
Yeah, they are, and it says that. It then
Right.
says if no to either, don't complete the form.
okay.
But
Right.
Yeah.
but anyway,
Yeah.
it is a little okay. Well, we
all
won't
right.
we won't fight the battles we can't win. What I would like to propose that we do from here is to respond again to the committee, and telling them that we have analyzed the response. And that we basically don't think it's sufficient for what necessitated our initial inquiry.
And could I add that we also, in the initial inquiry, asked them to audit some of the people who had registered or re-registered, if you will, gotten a new license in the last year.
Well, I think we ought to have a paragraph in there describing our rationale for requesting the audit and what we meant by the audit to begin with. And then we can, enumerate these items that we have found that still are a problem. And what I would like to do is to suggest that because motor vehicle is having an audit in August,
Expedited.
that, they may wish to include these items in that. However, we're concerned about time, and with the election coming up next year and registration that's ongoing as a result, sooner is better than not. But at least there's that vehicle there if they want to use
And
it.
may I ask you to send a copy of the letter to Joe Getty, second floor in the governor's office, who's liaison to the legislation, and voter integrity is one of his huge issues.
Yes, David.
I agree completely with the goals. I want to talk about the strategy for a moment. And I'm wondering whether it's a better strategy for us to go back to the audit committee that apparently has made a decision to proceed in a certain way and come back in 6 months. Or is it a better strategy for us to go to the Motor Vehicle Administration with a copy to the audit committee and say, thank you for all the things that you've done so far. Here are all the things that we think still need to be done. And address it in that fashion. My concern is first off that although I agree that the steps they've taken are not sufficient, they have taken some steps, they have responded, and I think that the legislative auditors may very well not be interested in jumping right back in at this moment until they've had a chance to see what happens. And after 6 months, there'll be many more examples like Gracie's in all likelihood to act upon. We want these state agencies to feel like they do get some, there's some benefit to them to responding favorably, and by copying the audit committee, we would be letting them know that we still think there's a ways to go, but we're not quite directly saying to them, we don't like the way you handled our letter.
I don't think we're saying that. We're just saying it doesn't completely deal with it. I really think we should not waste that opportunity of August, however, and the 6 months could fall outside that.
Well, 6 months from February is August, so what's the date on the letter that the audit committee wrote?
Was it? I'm doing March.
And also the name.
No, I thought that the letter came before our February meeting.
January 14th was the letter to the joint. No, January 14th was the letter to Linda and Milt Chaffee.
Wait, I have it here. It's
And then January 26th, 2015.
February 24th is the letter to me from the chairs.
Okay, but when the chair first said that he was going to do the 6 months, what date was that? Because
That's February 24th.
No, the letter to you came after that he first said it. I mean, he said it to the media before he said it to us, I thought.
Well, he might have. He's talking. This is what's official. You don't.
Okay. Well, February 24th is still 6 months from August.
But they're preparing for an audit, David. I mean, I just think that. Also, I don't know if you know, but the audit committee meets after the session. That's their general traditional time of meeting. So that particular committee.
Right.
So we want to make sure we hit these windows. And as I say, but I think it's a twofold thing. I think we should go, we certainly can reach out to motor vehicle on some of these issues where especially we have feedback now, Gracie's, example. But it also deserves a response back to the committee with, the fact that we just haven't gone away.
Because some of this is mushy, very mushy.
Yeah, okay. And I think a lot of this is coming from the state board, in terms of what they want to do and not do. Okay, So we'll move forward with that, and we'll make sure everybody's copied on what we move forward with. The next item is the proposed bylaw amendment.
That should be in your packet. One page. Proposed bylaw is on the back.
I have so much paper here, it's,
Send it? Yeah, they have it. It's in your packet.
huh?
Here it is.
Oh, you don't mean in this packet, in the earlier one? Yeah.
It's in both, actually.
Okay. I know I have it in the packet I brought. Here we go. Okay.
Just before the voter registration report.
Section 22, is this it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's on the back of this one.
And it's, okay.
Right. The back shows you what the current bylaw says. Compared, you know, because the,
And we have, okay.
I read it.
So David, this was offered by you. If you'd like to put it out for purposes of discussion.
sure, I move its approval.
Okay.
Is 20 days the same as the others?
Yeah.
20 days is the same
It's
as
in
what's
compliance
required
with the
for
other.
the election of the board president at the beginning of a board term, as well as under our, that's a statutory
Right.
time period. And then under our bylaws, there's also the 20 days within the beginning of a term to elect the vice president and the secretary. So this would treat a vacancy for an officer position the same way as.
Well, that's the same 20 days.
Yeah.
Correct.
The president and the secretary and
President,
the,
secretary, and the vice president
President.
are all 20 days from the beginning of the board term. This would treat a vacancy for one of those positions as essentially like the beginning of a board term. And it would be treated the same way that the 20 days would start from the point at which the vacancy was created.
I think it's been pointed out that the 20 days in this instance really creates a problem in that, I mean, there's a definite difference between the beginning of the board term and when we have the initial election of officers. And yes, you want to get everything up and running and it's all done, you know, within 20 days. It's the first board meeting and you do that. In this case, where we have ongoing board meetings, that in most cases are, you know, every month. I think there should be language that reflects that to say that would begin with at the next scheduled board meeting, or you know, if you want the 20 days or 30 days, whatever. You know, I think the preference would be to do it at the next board meeting if the next board meeting just falls at that time. Because to have a special meeting for it.
You're saying if the board meeting is less than 20 days or more than 20 days?
Well, I'm saying at the next board meeting, period.
Okay.
You know, if the next board meeting falls within the next, it's generally 30 days.
Right, but as we learned this time, that's obviously not always the case. In this case, our next board meeting was postponed, my own view would be that I do not have an objection to if the board wants to change the number of days from 20 to 30. I think that the next regularly scheduled board meeting is subject to a lot of other factors that such a vacancy should not be. Board meetings are scheduled based on how much business we have. Board meetings are scheduled by the president of the board. Board meetings can happen or not happen based on the presence of a quorum. The weather, you know, or any of those things. I don't know. It's too bad that Kevin's not here. I don't know whether we have the legal authority to have a meeting by telephone. If we do, then 20 days is actually not a big deal. And if we don't, I think 30 days is not a big deal. But I do think that it should be something that should be determined by the calendar and not by a person. I think that if there's a vacancy, the calendar and the rules should dictate what happens next in order to avoid misunderstandings.
I have no comment about the 20 days, but I am concerned about the becomes ineligible. Who makes that determination? The member themselves says, I'm going to be ineligible?
It's the same language as is in the vacancy provision, I believe, in the bylaws. I didn't invent that. I don't. It doesn't seem to be on this piece of paper, but I believe. I didn't mean to add anything that wasn't what was already there. I believe you become ineligible, for example, if you move outside of Montgomery County.
Well, I understand
Yeah.
that kind of thing, or they would probably resign. But I'm thinking specifically about Nancy.
Well, you become ineligible if you miss a certain number of meetings in a row, which she didn't. I don't think it was.
So we don't make that determination. We don't come in here and vote, well, she's ineligible. There is a
I believe
things
that
happen.
I believe that the rules make it happen automatically.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
Written in
so,
the
and
rules.
again, that's
I want to
my
make sure this isn't changing.
right. No,
No.
it's not. No. My goal is exactly not to have it determined by the people. It's to have it determined by the rules, so that it wouldn't be used in a
Negative way.
in an improperly either partisan or personal way. I mean, it's designed to be when there's a vacancy, here's what we do, as opposed to having a lot of leeway for individuals to change it.
I guess the only thing I think is preferable is if it could be at the next board meeting.
Add that to this?
That would be, the preference, or not later than, and then, X number of days.
So you would suggest that we add language that says after ineligible, comma, at the next regularly scheduled board meeting, and in no event later than the first, than within 30 days of the creation, something along the lines, something along the lines of that. If there's a meeting before the 30 days, you wouldn't let it go 30 days.
Right, exactly. I mean,
20 or
you
20
do
days
it.
or whatever.
You do it at the next board meeting.
Yeah, because on the other side, that is a
20
different
days or
situation.
the next. I would
No,
put
if
it
you say
the other way around.
well, you say 20 days or the next board meeting, whichever is sooner.
Yes.
Well, if you want to be.
No, that does not work for what I'm trying to achieve.
Well, what are you trying to achieve?
I'm trying to have it at the next, not to call a special meeting if we're going to be meeting within, 30 days.
Okay, so what you want to do is you want to change 20 to 30, and in addition to changing 20 to 30, you want to specify that if there's a regularly scheduled meeting during that time frame, that it would be at that meeting. So what would happen if it was like our February meeting and we had a regularly scheduled meeting and then for whatever reason it wasn't held? Then it would still have to be done within the 30 days.
Yes, then you would go ahead and do it. And I believe we can have.
That came up before, and I think Kevin decreed that in certain circumstances we can have telephone.
Yes, we can. Yes, we
had a
can.
Well,
run back.
then why is the 20 days an issue?
Right.
You had a run back issue.
Well, because it's better to have things done at a regularly scheduled board meeting and something like filling a vacancy. I mean, there's.
Well, not unless you're in the middle of an election or in situations where you need to have an officer in place. You know what I mean? Or to sign. What is it that we sign at the?
We may all have different ideas
the
as to when it's
canvassing or
important to
stuff
have
like
an
that,
officer
right?
in place.
Right. So with the example of how we canceled this last meeting, if we had that language, we would have to wait it 60 days if we were to follow that without this.
No. We would have the days in there too. the next scheduled board meeting, or 30, no longer than 30 days.
Well, I would suggest, if we're going to go in that direction, that we phrase it like what Denise was suggesting. We would change 20 to 30, and then after the comma after vacancy, we would say, or at the next regularly scheduled board meeting, whichever is sooner.
Well, you can say on or before the next board meeting, 30 days on or before.
I would leave the 20.
I think what I just said
Right.
would accomplish what Mary Ann was saying, if I understood it correctly. Let me read it to you again so that you guys...
Why can't you leave the 20
Well,
with the same language?
you could leave the 20 with the same language if you were so inclined.
What Mary Ann has said about that, Denise, is
Yeah, I don't want-
if we're having a board meeting 22 days after this vacancy, and that would mean 2 meetings.
Or at the comment was or at the next board meeting.
Right. Well, except that so what you have a value judgment here, which is if your regularly scheduled board meeting is 22 days later, do you think that that is soon enough or not soon enough? And Mary Ann clearly thinks that that's soon enough, and I can't tell whether Denise thinks that that's soon enough. But I mean that's really that's really what we're talking about.
What did you just say? Read again what you just said.
Okay, what I said was, let's leave aside for a second the question of the number of days. So it says, within the first 20 days of the creation of such vacancy, comma, or at the next regularly scheduled board meeting, comma, whichever is sooner. And then a comma after that, the board shall elect by majority vote.
And so all we're talking about is we want to make that 30.
I'd like to make it 30.
Well, may I suggest, could we vote on one and then vote on the other? I mean, I'm willing to make both motions, but and I obviously don't vote. But what I'm saying is that
Right.
I suspect that the idea of doing it at the next regularly scheduled meeting, if it's within the time frame, would have widespread support, and that the idea of how many days, there might be some differences of opinion.
You made the motion. Do you accept the amendment?
Under Robert's rules, that is what I accept is not relevant to. It's only a question of what people move and how the group votes. So I don't. What I accept is I'm just
Well,
one
I mean,
person.
we're going to make them as the maker of the motion.
As the
you
maker of the motion
can.
under Robert's rules, I do not have any further rights than anybody else.
I am going to make an amendment to the motion, but you could accept it.
No, under Robert's rules, I cannot accept the
Okay.
motion. I'm one
We need
person.
to make a motion to amend this, correct?
May I
Is
make
that
a
the way it's handled?
First,
I am making a motion to amend it.
hold on. First, there needs to be well, you can call time if you want. I'm about to help you out here. First, there needs to be a second to the motion. There hasn't been a second
All right,
to the
second.
motion yet.
And
Hold
then,
it.
can I do this
Hold it.
question?
Hold on.
I want to know what the motion is
Yeah.
again. If you could
Yes.
say the motion
We may
again.
have to get Kevin on the phone.
Okay, so we
I just
had
want to hear the
David,
motion again.
who is the maker of the motion, and Jackie Phillips is the seconder, correct?
Yeah.
To the main motion.
To the main.
Okay.
And
All
Grace
right,
wants
so-
clarity on what the motion is.
The original motion is.
The original motion
David.
is what's on the piece of paper.
Right.
Okay.
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 Not amended.
Not amended in any fashion
Yes,
so
right.
far.
Right.
Okay.
Okay,
So
now,
Okay.
then
Now, do
Mary Ann,
you want to propose your amendment before I propose the other amendment about the next regularly scheduled board meeting?
I want to propose my amendment, which, yes, is the language that I wish I had in front of me. Basically, if a board officer described in this section dies, resigns, is removed, or becomes ineligible,
The first 30
within the first 30 days of the creation of such vacancy, or at the
The
next
next regularly
board
scheduled board meeting,
Scheduled,
whichever is sooner?
Which is, yeah.
whichever is sooner.
Okay.
the board shall elect by a majority
what is
vote of the regular members, a regular member to fill such vacancy. I just read it in full, so it's on the tape so that they can
Now,
figure it
let
out.
me ask you.
Okay,
Mr.
Mary
Yeah,
Ann-
is there a
I gotta
second
make-
to that?
Yeah, that's what I need.
Yes.
I second
Mary
that.
Ann's motion.
No. I second it. Right.
And we vote on that first, correct? Do we just do
you
one
wanna
vote?
So
No,
is-
that's it, that's the vote.
If you want discussion or if you have a question, this is the time
Yeah.
to do it, Jackie.
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
What yeah, I do. My question is now, do we vote on the addition?
You vote on
We
Mary
vote
Ann's
on,
amendment.
we
Yeah,
vote on,
right.
we
Yeah.
vote on the
Okay,
amendment.
I just want to make sure I know what I'm voting
Under
on.
Robert's
ahead, that's
rules,
cool.
if somebody wanted to move to divide the question and vote on the days separately from the other, they could. I'm not making
No,
that.
that's
No,
right. Okay,
no.
Mary Ann did it to
Okay.
ask for.
So then we'll call the vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, as stated, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm sorry.
Amendment.
And
Yes.
We all said
Aye.
aye.
So we have
Everybody
4
said
votes?
Aye, aye.
Aye,
I
aye.
voted.
Okay, so we have 5 votes. 5 votes in favor of the amendment.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay.
You five, you voted.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's only 5 people. So,
And now we vote on.
Now we vote on the
Oh, that's right, because he can't vote. I'm sorry, I was
David,
looking.
as amended.
As amended. Correct.
As amended.
Do you want me to
Now,
read it?
Yes.
They wrote it.
Yeah, I think David gets to vote on this. Let me.
I don't think I.
Yeah, you do. You vote on, you vote on
On
board.
bylaws amendments?
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
said.
Kevin said you could, remember? I was
Yeah.
trying to tell you.
Oh, you're right.
We haven't even
Oh,
voted
my,
yet.
no,
We
you're
can
right.
ask-
Yeah.
Here it is. Okay, put me down in favor too.
Okay.
Yeah, he gets
Here
to vote.
I was trying to be good.
I know.
Yes, that
Pause,
is.
Lisa, do you have,
Yeah.
do you have the motion, the second, you have all of the
Yes,
information
yes,
you
we
need?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Between.
Yeah.
Okay, so David gets to
Okay.
vote too, so
Okay.
that's.
I get to vote too.
I don't know what his vote is.
Oh. Okay.
I voted in favor.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's six, it's a unanimous.
Six to zero. Here's the amended motion. If a board officer described in the section dies, resigns, is removed, or becomes ineligible within the first 30 days of the creation of such vacancy, or at the next regularly scheduled board meeting, whichever is sooner, the board shall elect by a majority vote of the regular members a regular member to fill such vacancy.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we need to vote on that. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Now, this is now published on our website
Will be.
for 30 days and will become effective at the next board meeting.
That is correct.
With no
Does
further
the state have
action.
to?
This has already been before people for 30 days, for more than 30 days, for 60 days.
No, it
Not
hasn't
this
been before them
amendment.
as an amendment
The
to
amendment
the
is-
The
bylaws.
amendment- Well, Kevin and I actually had a conversation about this before the scheduled February meeting, where he expressed to me his view that the board could vote on immediately and adopt, and even with an amendment, this motion. And I'm looking for the provision that he was referring to. Where's the provision that talks about the
It's in
30
the
days?
minutes.
No, not in the minutes. It's in the bylaws where it says about how to amend the bylaws.
One moment.
He and I had a whole conversation.
Enactment, it says,
Can we just go on and Kevin tell us what to do?
No, he advises us.
Advise us what to
Yes.
do. I'm sorry. Wrong wording.
Well, it's kind of an important difference.
In this instance.
section 1.3 has the enactment.
Right, 1.3D says, in order to amend the bylaws, a member must make a motion and present the amendment during a regularly scheduled meeting of the board. That was done in January.
There was no
The motion to amend the bylaws must be approved by a majority vote of the full board, including substitute members, at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the board. That's today.
But there was
Was
no
there a
motion.
But it was
There
not-
was no motion in January.
There was a motion in January.
There was a discussion where Mary Ann said to push it on. We'll discuss it further in
What
February.
page is that?
That is
The-
page 9
Thank
of
you.
the January.
Well, the idea that was not a motion is ridiculous.
Well, it wasn't discussed or voted.
Okay.
Dude,
No,
So
it doesn't have to be
it-
discussed or voted. It has to be moved. I proposed an amendment. I handed it to everybody.
Yeah, he
We
said
even started a
propose an
conversation
amendment
about
to the
it.
bylaws.
You asked that
Yeah.
the discussion be postponed. The
Yeah.
idea that that's not considered a motion is ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you want to not consider it a motion, that's fine. In the future, if I make a proposal, I will make sure to use the word move in what I say.
Because it does say
Okay, let's move on.
it was proposed an amendment to the.
I think we have always had bylaw amendments posted as such on the website so that the public is aware of
Was
it.
it
I
not
mean,
posted in
we've made
January?
other,
No.
no.
Well, then that's a mistake. I mean, obviously, it was proposed in January so that it could be voted on in February, and this
Where does it
extra
say it has to be
requirement.
posted?
It doesn't say it has to be posted. There's no posting requirement in the bylaws.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
Where does it say it has to be posted?
It has been posted in the past.
That's been,
But it doesn't say that here, so it goes to the state board has to approve it though.
Are you going to
Yes.
mention this
So.
letter from?
Yeah, it should be sent.
well,
to the
in
state board
light
elections.
of, the transparency that this board has all been about, and including the fact that we now have, our minutes, so that people can, the audio of our minutes so that they can hear the board discussion, etc. And the fact that it's always been posted on the website as a bylaw amendment for people to see. I don't.
You've given a good argument for why it should have been posted in January. There is a difference since then, which is that now the public could have listened to the tape if they wanted to. There's unlikely to be a vacancy for an officer in the next 30 days, but I would say that if in fact it's going to be, if posting is going to be the new standard, I would suggest that we amend the bylaws to require posting. Otherwise, I think we've met the requirements of the bylaws. And if we're going to start getting, really technical about what's a motion and what isn't a motion, then, okay, that's good to know.
There's no harm in
It's-
posting it, though.
No.
It's
but
not a new standard. It's the current standard. Posting.
It's a new standard. It's
Posting
not,
is the current. It's how it's always been done.
Yes,
So.
but it would have
But
been
we-
done in January.
But
It
we've
wasn't.
already voted on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So
So what are we? We're
it's
posting.
posted, and then it
And
and
send
then
it
it
over to
becomes
the State
official.
Board of Elections.
It has to go to the state board.
No. I understand that. Has
So
to
when
go
we
to state
post
board,
it
but
on our website, it's going to indicate that the board adopted this amendment,
FYI.
On X date, on March 16th, by a vote of 6-0.
Correct.
Well,
This is
I
no.
have no problem with posting it if it has, it has no impact on when it takes
This is
effect.
no different than when we amended, and during our term, we amended the bylaws
Yes, it is.
with several things, including the fact that you can make a motion.
Let's go.
So, moving on.